The Padang and its surrounding architecture could potentially join the ranks of India's Mahal and the Great Wall of China. It's been identified as a possible candidate for Singapore's second UNESCO World Heritage Site. Sherry Look tells us more.
One of Singapore's most celebrated spaces could soon earn another feather in its cap. The Padang and most of its surrounding buildings are already national monuments, but to obtain UNESCO World Heritage Site status, they have to show that they're of global importance too. Collectively known as the Padang Civic Ensemble, the site has been added to the tentative list, which paves the way for it to be nominated. The National Heritage Board, or NHB, says it's an outstanding example of a British colonial civic square in the tropics. One historian calls it a symbol of empire building.
The buildings that you see around this area here are symbols of imperial rule. But it's also at this very site that our national leaders stood up and proclaimed Merdeka, independent, which is a word that echoed across all the empires, telling them that their time is over. It is a time for newly emerging nations like ours.
And it was at this very field in 1968 that the nation's founding leader inspired the spirits of perseverance. Despite the torrential rain, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew stood his ground, deciding the National Day Parade would go on. Among those who got soaked marching in the parade was his son and now Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. He played the clarinet as spectators fringed the field, even as they got drenched. This historical legacy is why the NHB is confident it's got a good shot at joining the Botanic Gardens in this prestigious club. It took Singapore's first UNESCO World Heritage Site 3 years to move up from the tentative list, and the process might be even longer this time round. That's because the Padang Civic Ensemble has to first undergo a preliminary assessment, which is a new mechanism in the process. It starts this September and could take up to 3 years. Still, NHB says it could be worth it.
With a World Heritage inscription, it brings a higher footfall. We see that potentially this could bring some benefit to the commercial sector around the site. We also hope that it fosters a higher level of national pride in our locals, with a raised awareness of the history of the Padang and its precinct.
The final list of structures hasn't been decided yet, and Dr. Kwok hopes the NHB will include the nearby war memorials too. The board will also carry out further research on how the bid could affect the site and surrounding developments. These findings could help determine whether Singapore will formally pursue the nomination.
The Padang isn't just a historical landmark. It continues to be a place where people create fond memories. Singaporeans shared their stories with CNA.
Madam City has taken part in every National Day Parade for the past 15 years, but it's the one held at the Padang in 2010 that she calls her sweetest memory.
Beside my husband and my daughter, I also marching with my younger brother from PUB and my elder brother from Singtel.
The parade will be held at the Padang again this year, and she's excited to march with the labour movement once more.
Most of Singaporeans really proud when stand there. Besides all the Singaporeans see us, I think whole world see us also.
For another Singaporean, the Padang holds cherished childhood memories.
I remember as a 5-year-old, visiting my dad in the office at Raffles Place, and we'll walk over here in the evenings because there's always some sport being played.
60 years later, Mr. Motiwala is now the president of the Singapore Cricket Club. It stood at one end of the Padang for over 170 years, watching over generations of athletes from all over the world in their quest for glory.
Most teams just absolutely adore the privilege of playing on the Padang with the background of the Supreme Court or now the National Gallery. It's just a magic moment for both the members and for all the visitors.
And if the bid to become a World Heritage Site succeeds, it will enshrine the Padang as a living piece of history.